Section 3.3, using a budget. Our objective for today is to compare amounts budgeted to actual expenses. First essential question, what is an unexpected expense? This is anything that comes up that you haven't planned for. For instance, car, whoops, I'm going to change colors here. Car repairs, hospital bills. If you were sick and had to go into the hospital, or you broke your leg, or you broke your arm, basically anything that is not planned for that came up. Be prepared to give an example of an unexpected expense for the test or any quizzes that we have. The expense summary that is on page 165 is a report that compares the amounts you have spent to the amounts you have budgeted. So obviously you have to do a budget first, and then you have to adjust the budget to suit your needs. The emergency fund is the extra money that may or may not be set aside to be used for unpredictable expenses like medical bills or car repairs. So you might have some money in an emergency fund. You don't want to use that for things that really aren't emergencies, because then it's not going to be there when you need it. So if you have $300 or $1,000 or whatever you want to put in there, and you see a really cute pair of jeans or a really cool pair of shoes, or you need a part for your car or something, unless it's really an emergency, like you need your car to get to work or, something like that, leave that money in there so that it's there for emergency purposes only. Okay, so Frank and Minnie have always kept accurate records of their expenditures. At the end of March, they prepared an expense summary. They had planned to spend $340 on groceries, but actually spent $361.85. How much more or less did they spend on groceries than they had budgeted? So if you subtract them, putting the budget amount first, and you look at that amount on your calculator, so I subtracted and I get negative $21.85. Now, when you think of that, that negative means they spent too much because they're in the negative. So they spent more. I don't just want this negative here. I want the amount, and then you have to decide, is it more or less? You're going to go down the line and do that. For some of the expenses, you'll see at the bottom, rent and mortgage, they budgeted $625 and they spent $625. So you might have zeros in there. That's okay. So the main point of this expense summary then is to look at what you spent your money on. Do you think that was just an odd month where it just happened to be that you spent more? For instance, maybe you spent more on groceries because you had a birthday party, or you had people over for dinner that you normally don't have. If it's a one-time deal, then I probably wouldn't adjust it much. But if you feel like the heating is, too much, then, you might have to cut back on something else. You're going to pay more for heating in the wintertime here than you would in the summer, or you're going to pay more for air conditioning in the summer than you are in the winter because you don't use it. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out which expenses that you can cut back on to make your budget smoother, so that you don't have, so that you're not in the hole at the end of the month. So you're looking at those expenses that they spent more on, and then look to see which ones could be adjusted a little bit so that next month goes a little smoother.